Okay, hello. My name is Mindy Vincent, and welcome to our first episode of Therapeutic Madness. This is my co-host, Trip Mitchell.
Therapeutic Madness.
Yes! Do you love that name?
That is a great name. How did you come up with it?
Actually, my son came up with it. My son he is so creative like that, and he just one day he's like, Therapeutic Madness, Mom. That's what the name should be. And also, I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan, and specifically, Can I Play With Madness is one of my favorite songs.
So we were just doing, before the show started, which is typical, we're talking to Travis doing copyright laws. Now, Travis is a on-the-road guitar tech, master, but he wasn't sure about copyright laws, so we'll find out.
So we'll find out, and hopefully you'll get to hear a little piece of heaven at the beginning of every episode of Therapeutic Madness. That's the hope and dream.
So what is Therapeutic Madness?
So Therapeutic Madness is a podcast about all things therapeutic, ranging anywhere from things involving couples, communication, substance use and addiction, harm reduction, because I am a harm reductionist, so you'll hear a lot about harm reduction in this podcast. But overall, I just want to have a platform where we can talk about things honestly and talk about things that other people are afraid to talk about or have weird stigmas and biases around. Let's have adult, pragmatic conversations about real things, and let's cut to the chase and not sugarcoat it and help people get the information they're looking for.
So in your case, you were one of the most open people you'd ever want. You've been a guest on our podcast. Let's do something, even if it's wrong. And every time you come out and you bring it. Is that what you want out of your guests, is to just total open honesty?
Yeah, I definitely want people to come on the show that can have open conversations, honest dialogues, even if the way they think or feel about something isn't the status quo. Great. Be okay with speaking about that. Let's have some dialogue about it.
So you have ventured to a spot where you're kicking butt and taking names. You're helping a lot of people.
Yes.
But you haven't had the easiest journey there.
No. So I myself am a person who is recovered from a substance use disorder.
You're a person. Okay.
I am a person, first and foremost, as are all other people. That's important to know on this podcast.
This type of information is why you've tuned in.
That is correct. People first, and then their description after. That's an important piece for this podcast. So I am a person who has recovered from a substance use disorder. And one of our podcasts is actually going to be about the concept of whether people can recover entirely from addiction, because I believe that they can. There's a lot of science that supports that.
That's a controversial opinion.
It's a very controversial opinion, so we will definitely be talking about that. So through my own process, I grew up in a home, a good Mormon home, and then my parents got divorced, and I ended up going through a lot of trauma and abuse, and went to live with my mom later on in my teenage years, and she was an alcoholic, couldn't really take care of me. So that just led to me being on the streets and using drugs, which went on for, many years, 17 years. I was addicted. And then I went through drug court, and, I had my son, and I had my son before drug court, but through the process of drug court, I did get my son back. And today I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I believe that anybody can accomplish whatever they want to, including recovering from a substance use disorder. So,
and you own a center that is helping an amazing amount of people. You're about to open a new location in Price, Utah.
Yes.
So tell me about what you do professionally.
So professionally, I have a private practice up in Heber, Utah, where I live. And so I see all sorts of people there in a therapeutic setting. And then I'm also the founder and executive director of the Utah Harm Reduction Coalition. We're a nonprofit organization that provides harm reduction services, education, and advocacy throughout the state of Utah. We are the first legal provider of syringe exchange services. We are the largest. We have syringe exchanges all throughout Salt Lake County. We have them in Tooele County, Weber County. We hope to one day be able to expand services throughout the state to everyone who is in need of those types of services. We also have our outpatient treatment center in Midvale, and we are opening an outpatient program down in Price, Utah, despite the contesting of a few members of the community down there. And we'll have a podcast on stigma and biases one of these days.
So you are doing an amazing amount for one person. You're a national corporation. You do a lot of stuff.
And I'm a single mom.
Well,
and a professor. I also teach at the University of Utah.
My gosh.
Yeah, but I just teach one class in the Masters of Social Work program.
But that is incredible. But the reason I bring it up is that when people listen to podcasts, you want to hear that maybe the people that are doing the show have been through some stuff and know what they're talking about. With Mindy Vincent, you are assured of that, and you've been through some rough roads.
Yeah. And part of what changed my whole entire path was, because I got sober through drug court and Alcoholics Anonymous, and I went to a program called The Haven. I also went to the House of Hope. So,
would it be easier to isolate the places you didn't go?
Yes, it would definitely be easier to do it that way. But I can give lots of shout outs when I'm in meetings, when people yell at House of Hope, and I'm like, woo, woo. So First Step, even though I didn't go to First Step because it's a male-only program, but I was the program manager there. So anyway, through my own experiences, though, I got sober through abstinence and AA and drug court. And then when I was 7.5 years sober, my sister died of an opiate overdose. And my little brother was still addicted to heroin. And that whole entire experience changed my whole life because, one, it was so devastating losing my big sister. Every day I miss her so much. I was showing Trip before the show. I have a tattoo on my arm, and you'll see it eventually, but it says Sisters Forever. It's been so hard to lose my sister, and she was a good LDS girl. She's never smoked cigarettes. She's never smoked pot. She doesn't drink alcohol, and she died of a heroin and Suboxone overdose. And at the same time, my little brother was addicted, and I was willing to do whatever it took to save his life. And in that moment, I learned what it really meant to meet somebody where they're at. I learned in that moment that my beliefs about how anybody else should live don't really matter. What matters is that we save a life, we meet people where they're at, and we help them to get to where they're going.
So essentially what you do, so for instance, in the Alcoholics Anonymous program, you were told that you never have a drink, the next drink will kill you, and a lot of us believe it, and we go from there.
Yeah.
Your situation is, if someone's out in the street shooting heroin, they're not going to go cold turkey. That's just not in the scheme of things. And what you're going to do is try to incrementally help them and make their lives better.
Yeah, and some people might go cold turkey. I mean, it's especially with opioid addiction, is really difficult to do. It's the reason why many people do not get sober, because they don't have access to detox services, to medical detox services. They don't have the time or a place or whatever to go through the detoxes. So in syringe exchange, people who are actively using, even if they don't have any interest in getting sober, we give them everything they need to stay safe, to stay alive, to use substances safely. Because whether we like it or not, people are using drugs and alcohol all throughout the world, and always have been and always will be. And substances in themselves are not bad. There's nothing wrong with heroin. It's how some people use heroin. Heroin has appropriate uses. It has appropriate medical uses. But we see people self-medicating and using it in an inappropriate way. So in syringe exchange, we're working to establish a connection, to get people the resources they need and to keep people alive. And then the spectrum just moves from there. So we help people get onto medication-assisted therapy, Suboxone, methadone, whatever they may need. Or if they want to go into detox and just go cold turkey, we will help them do that. We have treatment, so we'll help them, whatever their goals are for treatment, whether that includes abstinence or whether it includes, in AA, what they call marijuana management, which we'll definitely be having a podcast on medical cannabis and all of its wonderful uses, specifically in the realm of people who have struggled with addiction. But we'll help people in any facet that they need, because what really matters is that we help people move along in their life in a positive direction. And any positive change is what we view as recovery. Recovery is any state of being that's better than the one you were in before.
So in NASCAR,
yeah.
So this would be a crazy analogy. Sometimes you speed up by going slower, less fast than someone else. Okay, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But so let's say your lap time.
I'm trying to follow that trip.
Okay. Okay. So this is crazy. So let's say your lap time is 30 seconds. Because your tires wear out every lap, your next lap might be 30.2 seconds. So if you only slow down by 1/10 of a second, you're actually speeding up compared to other people. So, so in many cases, and the reason I bring that up is that people are going through hell, and if they just get a little bit better, just a little bit, that's something they can grow on.
Yeah, absolutely. It builds mastery.
If you can get 10% better in a month, then the next time you're 11%. It's math.
Right.
But that is such a wonderful concept because that's realistically how you can – everyone wants to get better. Yeah.
On some level, people want to get better. Some people may want to escape the pain or medicate more than they want some other things in life. But that's why we need to treat what is driving that. I tell people, don't try to garner compassion for the actual behavior. Try to garner compassion for what's driving that behavior. If somebody wants to be injecting heroin every day, if they're in a place where that's the best part of their day, that makes me want to cry. That's the best part of their day. Like, what else do they have in their life then, and what is that saying about what we as a community are providing for some of our most vulnerable people? What does that say about us as families, that people in our families are feeling excluded, isolated, and unloved, and that a shot of heroin is the warm hug that they've always been looking for? What does that say about our world when heroin is providing that more than other people are? That's sad.
But it's something that, as you've mentioned, has been going on forever. That within a human being, the idea to medicate oneself, it feels good. And I remember I had my ankle rebuilt in college.
Right.
And it was the first time I had Demerol. And that shows how old I am. But the gentleman in the bed next to me was a football player for the Lions, and he said, always complain about your pain 2 hours in. That way they'll keep you going. And, someone who had no substance abuse issues, but the feeling was good.
Yeah.
Drugs and alcohol do feel good.
They do.
Why are some people susceptible and others aren't?
I think anybody could be susceptible to drug and alcohol addiction. I mean, we know that there's a genetic factor to it, but there's also people who have no genetic factors for addiction, and they end up some of the most full-blown drug addicts I've ever seen, right? So I think, to me, I think that drug addiction typically starts out for everybody as either seeking pleasure or avoiding pain. And that is a very natural thing for all human beings to do. We all do it. We all seek to avoid pain, whether that be physical, emotional, whatever. And we all seek pleasure. Everybody seeks pleasure. Think about how many people sit around and drink Diet Coke all damn day here in Utah, and they love it, right? So people, they just are, having a drink, or they, smoke a little bit of this or try a little bit of that, and they're just looking to have some fun. And they find that sometimes some people take the pleasure seeking beyond, right? Because they might have a risk-taking personality. Many people would call that an addictive personality. I think that's a bunch of horse shit. I don't have an addictive personality. I have a risk-taking personality. I like to have fun. Dead sober, I'm usually the wildest one in the room, right? Because it's just part of my personality. That doesn't make me, born an addict, which is some crazy shit you'd hear in AA, right? But I don't think that that's accurate. I think that people have personalities that make them either seek to want to have a lot of fun, or people are the opposite. They're very introverted, and drugs and alcohol give them like a social lubricant, or it makes them finally feel at ease or whatever. So whatever it does for people, then that reinforces in the brain, right? And because you're a recovering alcoholic, like, what happens when you take a shot of tequila? You feel this warm, like, now imagine your life's in the shitter. You've got, your relationships with your family are distressed, or they're eliminated. You don't really have a lot of friends, or not people that you feel like are your friends. So let's say you're struggling with finances, you don't have a job, there's all these other factors in your life, and you take this shot of tequila, right? And it's like, well, one more will probably feel better. And just think about that reinforcement in the brain. The brain is fascinating, and it's the most amazing thing in the universe, right? And it's also it's got plasticity, right? Like, it changes. And this is where the disease concept comes from, right? It changes the brain, but the brain also changes back. And it's neural pathways that you create, So when you get this reinforcement that makes you feel better and also makes the shitty things feel a little less shitty, why wouldn't somebody continue to do that? And then how would they stop unless they learn something different to do? Which is why I truly believe that you can cure addiction if you treat the traumas of the past, learn new coping skills, raise protective factors, and lower risk factors. I think all people can be cured of addiction.
And you're unique in that. The vast majority
Actually, I'm not, but no. But I am the minority in recovery people. Yes, Go ahead.
So explain again how you feel that you can be cured.
So I believe that addiction, there's lots of things about why one becomes addicted, right? And even people who are dependent are not necessarily addicted. And that's something that we have to really start talking about, because especially when we're talking about the opioid crisis, man, we are turning the screws on some of the wrong people. People who have real chronic pain, people who have debilitating illnesses can only get 7 days worth of pain pills at a time. And these are people who are disabled and can't even get to a damn store or pharmacy. So, we're turning the screws on the wrong people. And I lost where I was going with that. You see what happened, Trip? I can go off on tangents, friends. You should know that.
And I am the tangent, but I was talking about the cure.
Right. Oh, yes. Okay. So because people use for so many different reasons.
I'm here for a reason.
See, I got lost on because I want people to know the difference between dependency and addiction. But not everybody is using for the same reason, so therefore not everybody's treatment is the same. But if you ask people, like Dr. Kapoor Mate, he asks people he doesn't ask them what their addiction's about. He asks them what their pain is about, because he believes that pain is what drives addiction. And I believe that as well, but I also believe it's an overlearned behavior and one that many people grow out of, and science supports that. There's a lot of science that supports that 75 to 80% of people spontaneously recover. Like, most people don't have to go to treatment, and most people do just kind of grow out of it. They have consequences, or certain events happen in their lives where they're like, okay, like, I'm going to be done. In fact, most people that I ran with, for 17 years, right? And I was a hardcore user, and everybody I know has been to prison, and some of them are never getting out, right? So these are like this is the bottom of the barrel kind of folks, right? Like, people do crazy stuff. All of us cooked meth and blah, 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 right? So out of all of us, I'm the only one and I had one friend that had to go through treatment because she got arrested on a distribution charge, but she's normal today after she finished treatment at Odyssey House, Outpatient Odyssey. She has been normal ever since. I'm the only one that went through treatment. I'm the only one who's stuck in AA and 12 steps for 9 years. Everybody else in my life, there's only a few who even use anymore, but most of them are like either just sober, or they might drink or whatever on occasion, but they're normal today, right? Like, they're not drug addicts and getting crazy.
So sometimes environmentally, or just primarily environmentally, you go through a period where you're around a bunch of people, you're going crazy, you get married, you have kids, and you just kind of moderate your behavior.
And sometimes that stuff settles down, right? And then there's some of us who run for much longer and have a lot more things we're medicating, and many people don't have coping skills, right? So if you don't have good coping skills, how are you supposed to manage things any differently? And when you are lost in chaotic use, substance use, alcohol use, it just creates more problems in your life, right? So then that's even more stuff that you don't know how to deal with. Yeah. And then it's like, so somebody who doesn't have coping skills, who their protective factors, things that they get up for every day, jobs, family, life connection, purpose, that starts to decrease. Risk factors like homelessness and criminal involvement and stuff like that starts to increase, right? And so we see the addiction continue to get worse. Now, if we reverse those things, why wouldn't somebody get better?
That's a very good question.
And people do all the time. And even people in AA, like, they don't know that they're not normal. They just hold on to a self-preserving belief, which is fine. I'm down for that. Hold on to whatever self-preserving belief you need to hold on to. Like, I want everybody to have a wonderful life. And if you truly believe that you, or even, I don't care if only this much of you believes that you can never have a drink again, great. I respect that. Don't ever have a drink again. But the reality is probably that most of those people could be normal again if they wanted to, but they don't have to be,
God. So during the next few weeks, what are some of the cool topics we're going to talk about?
Ooh, we're going to talk about safe consumption facilities, otherwise called overdose prevention sites. And we're going to talk about medical cannabis, because that's an important topic. I have a whole list of topics. I think that one of the things we'll delve into more is the 4 concepts, like the 4 things that I think it takes for somebody to heal entirely from addiction, and what those really mean, what they entail, and how we actually help somebody to get to that place. Because I hope that some people who work in my field will watch this podcast and integrate some of this stuff, because it is against the grain of how other treatment centers run. And I hope that people will start to integrate this, because we'll be doing a podcast too on the principles of harm reduction, and hopefully people can incorporate some of that, because it's all about humanity and dignity and meeting people where they're at, which is something that we as providers should already be doing, but we're not as good as we could be, for sure.
Okay. Wow, this has been you are fun to talk to.
Trip, you are fun to talk to, and thanks for always being willing to talk with me. Trip's the best.
Well, I agree with you in that regard. I want to thank Lee, Travis, and Thorpe for putting the studio together. We'll see you next time. The name of the show is, one more time,
Therapeutic Madness.
We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.